We all have a beautiful, bright light that we are meant to share with the world. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out how to make that happen. Strong body, strong soul. That's the name of this show. And I'm here to remind you that you have both of those things. I'm Maria. Thank you for joining me from wherever you are on the planet. Going with the flow, whether you are near snow-capped mountains or the Pacific Ocean. We are all so connected. Today, I'm sharing a conversation with my friend Paul Gotel. He is joining us from Hawaii today, from across the sea. He's talking about his new book, The Big You. I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. I hope you enjoy. Here we go. I'm so excited that you are here, but I'm even more thrilled that I got Paul Gotel to join me here on the show today. Paul, hello, welcome. Where are you joining us from?
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Glad you're all here. And I'm joining you from Maui. This is actually, the universe decided that in these crazy times, we all get plopped exactly where we need to be. And I got plopped in paradise. So I'm very, very graciously grateful and humbled by the generosity of spirit to sort of trap me in Maui. So it's pretty wonderful.
Not a bad place to be quarantined, right?
Absolutely. The best place to be quarantined. Yes, definitely.
Yes,
Definitely.
that's amazing. So you're on the island of Maui, on which side? Lahaina or the Lahaina
No,
Highway?
yes, it's near the Hana Highway. It's up country. It's called Haiku, which is perfect because obviously if anybody follows my blog posts, it's like there are like little haikus. So yeah, I actually live in Haiku on a street called Nanihoku, which means beautiful star. So I am really quite blessed.
Nice.
And I have this beautiful 2-acre property that is very inspirational. I'm sitting by a little brook that I made with the water running. So yes, to remind me to always keep flowing.
Wow. And last time you and I spoke, we were on the sand in Santa Monica, sitting on that bench at sunset, right? It was so gorgeous out. And that was such a great conversation. And I'm so excited that you're sharing some time with us right now here. Before we start to talk about your book, The Big You, about the universe, about spiritual awakening, we're going to get really deep. We're going to get really heavy. And like all at the same time.
We're going to remove the heavy and it's about dropping the head. We're going to drop some baggage.
Yes.
So yeah, if it feels heavy, if you the thing in life, if it's feeling heavy, it's because you're carrying something you don't need to anymore.
Yeah.
It's like this weird thing about whether it be emotionally or spiritually or mentally, you go, this feels heavy. Well, put it down. Right. Stop holding on to it. Really, it's nobody else's business. It's your business. You carry the things that are heavy, put them down.
Right. That's great. That's great. And we're going to get to more conversation like that. Before we get too deep into stuff, I just want to explain a little bit about how this interview is going to work. We're on Facebook right now. We're live. We have a split screen going on in front of us. I have a computer next to me. I'm not going to look at it too much. I'm not going to check the comments and such. So I really want to thank anybody out here who's listening, who's joining us for this conversation. Feel free at any time to put comments or questions below, and Paul or I will get back to you later. We would love that. Energy transmits across time and space. Doesn't matter when you are listening to our conversation. Our words are absolutely meant for you. In fact, I would go so far as to say that they're coming from you through us. So let's talk about the big you. Okay? The whole premise is your experience. You start off the book by describing your own spiritual awakening. And at the very beginning of the book, you're talking about going to a retreat with your mom. right? Was that in England when you were off on a 3-day retreat at the very beginning of your spiritual journey? You were talking about
Yes.
an event that you went to, which that right there struck me personally, because I have this connection with my mom where we go in spiritual directions on occasion as well. So I love that. So first, let's start off. Will you please tell everybody what I'm talking about? Where did you start
Okay.
your journey? Where did you start?
Well, as you said, it's the full story's there, but it was actually I was in Africa, and I met a woman, and she had mentioned that she'd had this amazing experience through using, I suppose, what we call in simple terms visualization. And then she'd had this experience of swimming with the dolphins, and I was actually on this journey, and I had always dreamt of swimming with wild dolphins. So it, she got my attention, and she said, I went to this course, the Flower of Life. Sounded very hippie to me. I mean, immediately sort of sunflowers and things like that, um, and yet I was like, what is it, and it struck a chord. So anyway, I actually went ahead, looked online, and found out that it was actually the Flower of Life is this sacred geometry. In fact, I don't know if you can see that there. It's probably a bit.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the seed of life. That's actually the Flower of Life is more circles, but essentially it's a sacred geometry anyway. So it wasn't quite the hippie thing that I thought it was. But anyway, I literally said, well, okay, I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. If this is going to help me have this experience, I'll do it. And my mum's birthday was coming up, and she'd always wanted to do things like this, and I'd never done anything like this. And I just went, I know, I'll take my mum because she'll love it. I'll have company, and I can just more be an observer. And yes, I was not ready for what happened, And if you read
Wow.
if you read the start of the book, you'll see what happened there. I mean, I really went with, let's say, a skeptic's mind,
Well,
like.
yes, and I felt that it was so fascinating to read your description of it, because a lot of us out here in the world we're all on our own journeys, and we all remember things differently. We
Yeah,
describe things in different ways, and you have such a great way of describing it in your book, of just the being everything part of it. And the one thing I wanted to say and get your perspective on is, for anybody who's reading the book or coming into contact with anyone who's had any kind of really elevated spiritual awakening, enlightenment experience, it's really important not to compare yourself to that person, and to compare your own experience to that, and be looking for that same thing. I think that's really important, to take a step back and allow yourself. It's all about allowing yourself to grow. Because oftentimes when I'm teaching chakra meditation, we talk about the colors and everything that are associated with each one. But if someone doesn't see that, it doesn't mean they're doing it wrong. There is no wrong, which I wanted to talk a little bit about that you talk about in your book, about how every experience matters. There is no such thing as failure. And I would love to hear how you describe that idea that there's no such thing as failure in this life.
yeah. I mean, it's very interesting because we basically go through a period of life. Every creature goes through a period of learning where learning is acceptable.
Mhm.
It's understood. You have to learn, whether you call them children or young animals or whatever. There's a learning phase, and we're all accepting of that. And then there's a magical point where suddenly, somehow, you're supposed to know it all, or you think you're supposed to know it all. You're supposed to be, quote unquote, an adult in the human spectrum. And now, for some reason, the idea of learning is almost like an embarrassment or a hidden thing or something that you don't really want to necessarily share. And the interesting thing about the concept and the idea is that if you don't, quote unquote, get it right, it is seen as failure. But actually, up until that point, every time you didn't get it right, what you were simply doing was learning. And so, you cannot learn without the concept of making a mistake. In other words, making a mistake is actually an erroneous idea. It's simply learning something and then choosing how you're going to take that wisdom on further. And
Yes.
so it's like, walking is controlled falling. If we were scared of
Yeah.
learning, if we were scared of failure, we would never walk. But because actually what happens is we stand up and we fall and everyone goes, well done. And we stand up and fall and everyone goes, well done. And eventually we literally fall one foot after the other. And that's called walking and running. So
Yes.
you're actually always, if you're not prepared to quote unquote fail, you actually stop yourself learning, which means you stop yourself growing, which
Right.
ultimately means you stop yourself evolving, which is the purpose of your life. And so all of your problems are your restrictions from stopping yourself evolving because you're scared of this concept of failure. But actually, it's when you move forward, each step is actually supposed to be a step of risk. Because it's when you're risking, what you're saying is, whatever I bring to this, I am ready to let go of so that I can evolve. In other words,
Yes.
if you're too structured, if you're too rigid, that's where you can break. And then that's where the concept of failure. But actually, on an evolutionary level, you're supposed to constantly be breaking down your
Mm-hmm.
structure so that
Mm-hmm.
you can be fluid to
Mm-hmm.
recreate your structure. So we
Right.
have a very erroneous idea. And the interesting thing about, it's like you can't fail to succeed, meaning every moment is a success's moment. Every moment is a moment after each other
Right.
moment. And
Right.
and if you actually avoid any risk, in other words, of try and avoid failure, you will not learn anything. And therefore
Yeah.
you will not grow. And then you become what's called cycling in stagnation, as opposed to actually literally every moment being willing. Neil Donald Walsh actually says a great quote. He says, I'm willing to, humility is knowing there's something I don't know, the knowing of which will change everything I do know. And I've stepped that up in my new project that I'm working on, a TED Talk, which is called Fluidity, the Art of
Uh-huh.
Deconstruction.
Uh-huh.
And the idea is that rather than being an identity, you're a fluidity. And you
Uh-huh.
literally say, there is something about me that this moment could call into question, and I am willing to release it every moment. So you literally are looking every moment, which part of you feels too rigid and ready to let go of.
Everything you talk about is just so mind-blowing I mean, it just really is. It's just so great. I'm looking at my notes here. That's what I'm doing because I took some
Yeah.
notes. So some of the way you describe how you use language, what you're just talking about, the whole idea of remember is like what you're just saying, that catastrophe of being fallen apart and then remembering, putting the members of your body and your whole and your remember and remind and get your mind back. That whole, it's a constant flow of
Yeah.
like sacred geometry, just like the whole patterns, everything kind of goes so far apart and then back together.
But the idea is that every back together is informed by the potential wisdom of the dismemberment.
Yes.
So when you enter each moment and say, I'm ready to literally dissolve my whole identity to enter into this moment without baggage, you
Yes.
then are available to gain the wisdom of that moment. That wisdom then informs the next inspiration, the next creation of who you are. And then
Mm-hmm.
you take that into the next moment,
Mm-hmm.
but then you enter into that moment and once again and say, I'm also ready to surrender. And what happens is it's not that you surrender all of you, but it's just what you say is that any parts that are ready to be like dissolved, given back to what I call the infinite potentiality,
Uh-huh.
so that I can then access them once again for my finite actuality, but that there's no attachment to the identity, what we've achieved, what we've done, where we've been, what accolades we've got, how much money we've got. All these things are the prisons that pervert our opportunity to actually express who and what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of ingratiation, in other words, the idea of being more than, is actually the issue here, because you came in an unlimited source. You actually came in with your very own perspective, and you have an unlimited source. And the idea is that you're supposed to share that.
Right.
And if you try and get something from life, what happens is you basically are stuffing something in to a flow that is supposed to be abundantly coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates blockage and stagnation.
Right.
The purpose of this existence is not to get anything, is not to ingratiate yourself, not to make yourself more, but to
Right.
discover through the expression of who you are every moment,
Mm-hmm.
and the releasing of that, like the surrender of that to
Right.
the expression, you then are then filled with the next evolution that you then discover in the expression. You don't know who you are unless you let it out, unless you share it.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think I said to you one of the first days, most of the things I say is like having a conversation with someone who comes from a world where the clocks go backwards. And the normal world, everyone's like, no, the clocks go this way, it's clockwise.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the whole world's based on clocks go clockwise. And
Right.
pretty much everything that I've learned through these, like, you know, through my whole life, but through these very intense 25 years of spiritual journey, is that I slowly discovered that pretty much everything was based on an ideology of playing a game. Like, let's say Monopoly. And everyone's learning how to play Monopoly and getting money and buying houses and doing things. And then people get spiritual and then they learn how to
Mine,
hack
mine,
that.
mine, mine, mine. Yeah.
And then they learn how to hack that and how they can do it. But they're still playing within the context. And then there's lack and there's abundance. And then there's the problem with money. And I'm a spiritual person. And I don't want, and all these stuff. But that's still on the game of Monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really happening is we're playing a different game. We're playing Clue, and we're the ones who did it. You know the game Clue, right? You know?
Yes. Yes.
So of course, when you're talking to someone and they go, no, it's Monopoly. What are you talking about? It sounds crazy.
It's a different
But,
game. Yeah.
but when you actually look at it and go, no, the reason why this isn't the answer, the reason why you can get fame, riches, success, all those things that we like look for, right?
Right.
And then you can list all these people that have had all those things and had a very, you know, in their own inner riches, have been devastated and ended up, you know, being upset or whatever.
Right.
And the only success in that area really is those that go into altruism. In other words, those that discover, wow, this wasn't the answer. The answer is, how can I serve?
I love your analogy of those two games, because you're absolutely right. Everybody gets so busy, they don't think to look down and realize that they're the one holding the knife or the candelabra or whatever it may be, right? And it's like, I was climbing up that wrong ladder. The ladder was on the wrong wall. It should have been over here. That whole kind of idea where you were in the wrong place. I loved it what you talked about in the book about, I mean, obviously so many of these lessons and inspirations are communicated in so many different ways, so many different traditions, like the law of attraction, the whole idea of the kind of vibration you put out, you draw to yourself. But I want to ask you, if you could please explain for us the idea of repelling positive energy, because I thought that was so cool, the way you said some people, you know, will be drawn to positive people and others will be like, it's like way too much, and they'll run the other way. And as you can imagine, people sometimes run from me. And it like really triggered me. I love the way you explained it, kind of.
Yeah, I'm just going to share with the viewers. Whenever I see
Too much. I'm too much.
It's like she's like, if anyone's seen the movie that got kids and they've seen the movie Trolls, there's a character, the big character that Anna Kendrick plays. It's called Poppy.
Poppy.
And that's what you're like. You're like the living embodiment of Poppy. And yet, yeah, the concept of this is. It's very simple, but it's very profound. It's actually the thing that I'm working on my other TED talk on, and then I'll try and make it as succinct as possible, because I know you've got a lot to go through, but it's very profound, and it's very big. But essentially, what I was saying earlier, what we come in with, we come in with, like, it's almost like if you want a little story, before you come in, it's like, okay, what do you want to come in with this existence? What do you want an absolute abundance of and to share? and you're like, oh, well, I would love to, do this, right? Whatever it is, you choose something. And then you come in and you're a little being, and you're like, ah. And in the book, if
Here
you've
I
read the
am.
parable of the little light that shone too bright,
Hmm.
have you got to the bit? So
I
essentially,
did. I did. And
yeah,
everybody got scared of him. And then they pulled the plug and everything was dark. Yes. I was so sad
yeah.
for him.
But
Yes.
but if you remember, what happens is, so we come in and we're really bright, and then your parents go, okay, that's too much, and
Right.
they give you a dimmer
You're too
switch.
loud. You're too
Yeah.
loud.
So they
You're
give you a dimmer switch, and they
mhm.
turn you down, and then eventually you learn to use it, and that's when you
Yeah.
become an adult. And then eventually you've got so many shadows that you create. You basically put a shade on, and that's where
Hmm.
you hide, and that's where all your authenticity is hidden. And so
Yeah.
life, you want to authentically express who you are, just like children do. And then there's this border control, and it says,
Hmm.
you know, are you going to get embarrassed? What's this going to cost you? Are you going to lose a job? Are you going to offend someone? Are you going to look silly? Like, what are the advantage? And so then they let a little perverted version of what you wanted to express through,
Hmm.
based on
Hmm.
the results that you think it's going to give you. So you manipulate yourself. You literally sabotage yourself. And the crazy thing is, all your energy is going on this part. In other words, your border control is where it's like a country that has a war machine, right? Most of its resources are going on keeping this border control.
Uh-huh.
And so this is what every one of us does literally every moment. And yet as a child, you haven't learned that. So you come in and you're super bright. And
Yes.
that's why certain, parents or, certain adults come up and they're like, oh, I love, and they're like, oh, no, that child's a bit much. Can you quiet down? Because
Yes.
we've all decided that we don't have the permission.
Yes.
We actually become our own restrictors.
Right.
And so what happens then is that we become so subdued in that we believe we're not enough, because we now have a lack. And the reason we have a lack is twofold. One, we are not accessing what we truly are supposed to express. So because you're not accessing it, you go, where is it? So you feel a lack. And two, the energy that you do have is used to hold it back.
Uh-huh.
So literally, you're having this internal battle that's taking all your energy, and you're detached from that, going, why have I lacked this? I know I've got something to give. I know I've got something to express, and what's going on? And so what you then do is go, I'm not enough. I need to get something. So then you go out to the world, and basically you try and get love. Now, love can be in success, money, fame, attention. All of these things you use to try
Hmm.
and get people to approve of you, to like you.
Right. Right.
And so that's what you learn. And you see that through, young children into teens. And then, of course, you hit this rebellion where this doesn't make sense. And it's
Right.
like, oh my God, this doesn't make sense at all. And then if you're lucky, in your late 20s, 30s or whatever, you start to actually go, okay, what's going on? And then you start going to spiritual workshops and you meditate and you go, I am enough. I am enough. And it's a huge thing at the moment, is I am enough. But not to, go against this huge spiritual I am enoughness and Gary Bernstein and all these great people. But I don't think it works like that,
Yeah,
because
I'm gonna
it's,
play a song for you at the end. I Am Enough by Justin Michael Williams. It's a great song.
and, and,
Justin is awesome. And
and I actually, the interesting thing is that I actually went to the Mind Valley, and there was a guy got on stage, and he's a poet, and he did this poem, I Am Enough. And so it's a big, big thing. And it is great. When someone's at the bottom step and they want to go to the next step, I am enough is awesome. I'm not saying it doesn't help you on that step, but it's not the end of the journey, because the point is that you are more
more.
than enough. So that too much is actually translated is you're more than enough. And
Right.
all your stress is you holding back the dam of your more than enoughness.
Hmm.
And that is why all of your things you choose to do is trying to get something, is because you are blocked the flow where you are actually provided from, which is the source within you.
Right.
So when you realize that, not only do you realize the whole point of any interaction is what can I share, in other words, and you discover who you are by the sharing of that.
Hmm.
And then you discover the abundance of you, who you are, and you discover that that is love. And
Right.
so the idea of getting love from any other source outside of you becomes erroneous. And the only purpose of the reflection in front of you is, oh, this is an aspect of myself. How can I love it?
Right.
How can, and I will do that by expressing my love through the sharing of my more than enoughness.
Well,
So, and the
yeah.
crazy thing, just to complete that, is that then this energy that you've been using to hold yourself back becomes available to you. So
Hmm.
this flows, and this becomes available. So you know when this is working, because you'll never say, I'm exhausted by that.
Hmm.
So, you know, the healers and certain people, and they go, I work with people and it's kind of draining and you've got to protect your energy and all that. I don't believe in that at all. I mean, it's like, that is when you are separate from them.
Hmm.
But the point, the only thing is, as I said, the idea is they are representing something in you that you are rejecting in yourself. And so if you can love them, you are actually removing a rock from that expression.
Right.
And
Right.
then you get all this energy. And then the final bonus is that you calm yourself down in social situations. So
Hmm.
the magic for literally everybody is find the thing you judge yourself the most for, the thing you've suppressed just your whole life, the thing that your parents, your friends, said, oh, they're a bit much there,
Hmm.
and find an outlet, find an expression, a job, a vocation, and use that as an outlet for that too muchness, and discover your more than enoughness. And then what happens is you balance, and then in your social circles, you're now not a pressurized thing. You're somebody who is living their purpose.
Right.
And so
Right.
everything calms down.
Well, and
Anyway,
it's, yeah,
I think this is revolutionary myself.
it is. It is. It's a whole revolution. The big you. I love it. I love it. You guys, if you're just tuning in with us right now, this is Paul Gotel, the author of The Big You. And Paul, last time we spoke, remember we were at that Marianne Williamson talk in Pasadena, and
Yeah, that
you
was
were
awesome.
so quiet. You were so quiet in the corner, and I asked you to be in our little group of three, remember? And then you're like, are you sure, ladies? And I'm like, sure. And then he's like, boo, 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 boo. It was so fun. But what you were just talking about, really, oh, it's so weird because you just reminded, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day. I interviewed, his name is Kurt Clendenin. He is with a band. He's a great creative person. He's a podcaster out here as well. But we were saying too, it's exhausting when you try to stop yourself from that release. But at the end of my interview with him the other day, because we had so much fun and we went through so many different versions of spirituality and creativity and how to use music and all this great stuff, but it is tiring. It is. One of the things I think that scares people when they see that glimpse of their too muchness, like Marianne Williamson says, we're afraid of our own greatness. So we get scared to go too much there. But then we also put this added pressure, I think, on ourselves that we're going to have to be like that all of the time. And I think you're a great example of that because you can be on stage giving a huge inspirational, motivational talk and then be the quiet guy at the back of the room. And all of that, both of those things are you. And so I think sometimes when people break through, I think they get scared because they think they're going to have to live up to that one way of being all of the time. What do you think? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's interesting you're talking about Marianne Williamson, because obviously, her famous quote, which not a lot of people know, actually, the general population think it's Nelson Mandela's quote. When Nelson Mandela finally got free and he did his inauguration speech, he actually quoted Marianne Williamson's quote about our greatest fear is our light, not our darkness.
Uh-huh.
And it ultimately is. And another way to put that is, as our greatest fear is actually taking responsibility. And the reason we don't, one of the number one, let's say, spiritual ideologies of every metaphysical, philosophical, religious doctrines is discovering who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who am I? What am I? Who is this consciousness? Who is this looking out into this world? What is the point? Why am I here? These are the quote unquote
Yes.
quintessential big questions. And the situation is that the fear is that the minute you start looking at that, you realize that you are in the driving seat of your experience. And most of us are, imagine we're sitting in the passenger seat, and we're actually going, who the hell's driving? The government, the weather, the pandemic, right? Like my life is going all over the place,
Right.
and I'm the victim of this experience.
Right.
Now, they might not use that. A lot of people don't like that word. It's a charged word, victimology, as Caroline Miss
Well,
calls
they're
it.
looking for
But
a hero to tell them what to do, or they're looking for someone to blame for things going wrong. Whatever the case may be, it's outside
yeah,
themselves. Yeah.
but ultimately, what's happening is that you're actually asleep at the wheel, dreaming that you're in the passenger seat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's going all over the place, because you're asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what I do, is the art of self-revolution is to wake somebody up. But then you have to go, fuck, I've got to drive. Excuse my French.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I
Oh.
uh-oh. Oh dear, my kids. Yeah. Fudge. I've got to drive. So you're then there, and you're like, whose hands are on the wheel? My hands are on the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest reason we don't take this responsibility is because then we have to backtrack through our past and face the idea that the wounds of our past we were actually in charge in some way. We were actually, whether we were conscious of it or not conscious of it. And that really is the biggest barrier, when I work with people, is that a lot of people will go lifetimes without ever going through that barrier.
Right.
In other words, putting themselves in the place of power. So that's why, and so it's like, because you've literally got to unhook all these stories of blame that some are so, let's say, fundamentally physiological. So, like whether you were, in my own life, I've been attacked, I've been physically attacked, I've been accused, I've been stolen from, I've been robbed. These very much physiologically feel like somebody did it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only way to jump over that, like that sort of mental boundary, is to say that somebody is me.
Right.
And that somebody was taking something from me, that baggage that I was talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
was taking a piece of baggage. Now, when you have your baggage stolen, you're like, oh my God, I got my baggage stolen. But mentally, psychologically, baggage being stolen is actually creating space for you to evolve. And so sometimes the baggage that's stolen is a house, is a relationship, is a job, is money, is your health.
Right. And it goes back to the whole idea of how you respond, because I was robbed at gunpoint, 20 years ago. And I could think about that and be fearful of it right now. And then that definitely is me doing that crime again and causing myself that guy doesn't remember anymore. He's not thinking about it anymore, So it goes to our reaction to things too, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that you just said there that could spark off. That guy was actually scripted, auditioned, and brought into existence in your reality by you.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually, and on a high level, if you want to say that, if you want to, not the highest level where you're all one, but on a level of sort of souls, you could say you even had a previous agreement for him to show up.
Right.
And the impact of that experience to you, I'm sure, impacted you on so many levels. But the impact, you see, we're scared of breaking the vase, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as we know, in the Far East, there's a whole understanding around breaking a pot and then gluing it back together.
Mm-hmm.
And so the point is that you learn about the structure of your being by the deconstructing of your being, right? And that's and eventually you get to this point where you stop trying to structure. You simply constantly are in that fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And because the world doesn't support that, and we try and create this rigid, let's say, castle, and eventually our own internal child is imprisoned in that,
Mm-hmm.
we then literally have to manifest from the big, huge standpoint, being robbed, attacked, all these things that
Right, right.
seem very traumatic. And, obviously in my experiences were very traumatic. But
Well,
in
yeah.
hindsight, and the journey and the change in direction of my life because of each of these big impacts was so profound. And so it really is, you're going back to that thing about stepping up into your light, is that when you do that, you are literally shining a light through everybody's, let's say, shades, and they have to see their own wounds and their own hidden suppression.
Right.
And that's why it can bring about, a reaction that
Oh,
feels like triggering for others.
there's
And
the
then,
answer I was looking for.
yeah,
They're being repulsed a little bit at positive energy sometimes, because when someone who isn't comfortable there, who isn't in that childlike state of joy and causeless bliss, they forgot about that. They don't want to see that in themselves. They've lost that. It reminds them of their own loss and their own forgetting.
but the interesting thing about the word loss, right? There's two aspects to the word loss. So the first aspect of the word loss is like, it's gone, right?
Yeah.
And the other aspect is, I can't see it.
Right.
Right. So have you actually ever lost your inherent beauty and light and brightness that you
No,
came in with? Never.
no.
Right.
Yeah.
So all of the things that wounded you didn't affect your light, the essence of you. They affected the construct of you, the egoic construct of you.
Mm-hmm.
And they were actually, the crazy thing is, you will literally constantly attract through life things to break apart your construct.
Mm.
So we have a world that's constantly supporting the construct, the identity,
Yeah.
trying to big it up. And then we have to create a world that's has all these systems to protect the identity of the country, the identity of a person, the identity of a
Right.
company, etc. But the point is that limits the evolution. It limits, like in businesses these days, right? If you are too embarrassed to step up, you have an intuitive idea, but you haven't got, you're like, oh, if it doesn't work, or if I say the wrong thing, or if it
Mm-hmm.
fails,
Mm-hmm.
I might get sacked, or right? Okay, so I'm not going to say anything. So it limits. I've forgotten the word now, but anyway, the word of creativity and ingenuity.
Potentiality. Yeah.
When people are willing to take risks. And the crazy thing is that Google did this experiment where they basically gave a certain amount of their staff. This is kind of a famous thing now, but they said, these days you can work on your own stuff, whatever you're inspired to work on. You're at work, we're paying you,
At
but
their
you work on
job.
your own stuff. Yeah. And over 25% of Google's new successes each year come from that.
Oh, because they're more passionate, because it's
Yeah,
coming from their own instincts.
exactly. But
Wow.
also it's like they're saying, we're not going to, is it success or fail? We're not even going to judge it in that way. We
Uh-huh.
want you to fail. In other words, we want you to learn. We want you to experiment.
Right,
And that's
right.
another thing. If you look at a scientist or a chemist, especially a chemist, it's all about experimentation.
Uh-huh.
And we've stopped experimenting with ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We've stopped experimenting with life because we
Right.
see the things that will, quote unquote, will have to leave or lose. We've actually set this mindset that something leaving, something being lost, some space, something being deconstructed. All of this is seen as a negative thing. So if you were sharing your week, you would share the things that you gained, things
Mm-hmm.
that came to you, things that you built.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone said, if you had a bad week, go, yeah, I lost this, or this deconstructed, or I got confused by this. So we've got the clock the wrong way around. The
Right.
way to actually live your life is, oh yeah, this left me this week, so I'm really excited what's going to fill that space. And this deconstructed, so I've got this whole new opportunity to build something. We all know this. When we move, we start packing the boxes and we go, what's all this stuff? I don't need it anymore.
Right. Oh,
Why was
well,
I
right,
right?
right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you give it away, and then you move, and you're like, wow, this feels so much clearer because you don't have the clutter. And in the same way, if you can approach every day with your identity, and when someone challenges you or something's being taken away from you, like, oh, thank you for taking my stuff. Yeah. They're like psychic versions of goodwill. They're taking your crap away
Right,
not crap,
right.
your crap is somebody else's thing, but,
Right, right,
and
right.
then
One man's treasure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and now
Uh,
you have a chance to reconstruct. And the thing is, even if you wanted to build yourself exactly as you were, right? Say you were like, I'm the most perfect person ever. People go, this is very common in Maui spiritual world, right? It's like, yeah, everything's wonderful. Life's so amazing. I live in paradise, right? Like nothing, there is absolutely nothing wrong, right? Which is obviously, it's like the abuse of the word fine. I'm fine. And you're like,
uh-huh.
oh, okay, right? But anyway, the thing is, it's the idea is that you're not actually, the minute you set something in solidity, it is now limiting you. Anything solid is a limitation. So that's why actuality is finite. Everything that exists is supposed to be constantly dying. We, even this body that we
Yeah,
think is real,
yeah, yeah.
is literally every day over 10% of your body cells are in entropy, which is that they are deconstructing themselves. The elements of them are then taken into your body and used to reconstruct yourself.
Right, right.
So
It's
if you
constant.
and one of the biggest killers on the world at the moment, I'm going to say something quite controversial here, and I don't say this from
Uh-oh.
not having the experience, because I have the experience of this. Anyway, okay, all right, I'm going there. In my 20s, I had some issue with my prostate and a growth, and this idea of cancer. So I had a choice, go one way, the traditional medicine way, or the other. Now, obviously, I'm not a doctor, and everyone should follow their own guidance and what they want to do. Obviously, I realize people listen to this, do that. But my choice was to see that this was an aspect of myself that I was holding on to. In other words, when you say to your cells, don't die, don't die, don't die, that's what cancer is. Cancer isn't something that entered your body, an alien thing. It's something that is your body that is growing when it should be dying. So our mentality of fighting dying actually permeates into our physiology and our cells that are supposed to die so that new ones can be born. So we're constantly evolving as a physiological being. Actually, no, I'm not dying. And then there's this growth, there's this tumor, there's all these things. And so I got to be able to see the area it was in my body, see how that was relating to how I was acting in my life, and what that was responding to me. Louise Hay really did a lot of
Yes.
work around your body and your emotions and how these things do. Anyway, and so the point is that we actually end up, let's say, destroying our form by the idea of attachment to our identity, even our physiological identity. And when we can allow ourselves to constantly transmute, to constantly dissolve, to literally be a fluidity, both physically and mentally and spiritually, that is when we simply become a conduit for the expression of who we are. And
Beautiful. Yeah.
all these issues, this is where they're coming from,
Yeah. Yeah.
as far as I can see right now.
Wow. Wow. I wanted to let you know that there was one, when I was listening to your book, there was one thing in there that
I'm sure there was many
kind
more.
of didn't seem right to me. It kind of
Okay, yeah.
triggered, it kind of, it, you
Only
were
one
just,
thing triggered you?
well,
Oh my goodness.
well, there was a lot that like resonated with me that I was like, oh yeah. And I agreed with everything. This thing though, you were listing different attributes of love, what love is. And one of them that you said was love is innocent. And that just like, I was wondering what you meant by that, because to me, innocence means naive, means not knowing and being aware of
But
reality.
that's not what innocence means. That's
That's what I wanted you to explain,
yeah,
because that
exactly.
the word
So that's,
innocence for me is a trigger. And innocence to me means naive, not knowing the ugly part of life. And I think right now, especially in this world that we're in with the pandemic and everything, there's so much trauma happening everywhere that one of the things that I talk about quite often is love is at the deathbed and at the birth of a baby. It's everywhere on both extreme, in sadness and sorrow and ecstasy. and it's that range. So that word innocence kind of got me. What is your thought on that?
Well, I think we should set up a few sessions about that for you. Definitely. There's a
I
whole
just revealed a whole problem.
there's a whole unraveling there. But one of the he's kind of famous actually.
Dr. Gotel.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually a kind of he's famous at the moment because Netflix did a thing on him. But Osho is an Indian sage, and he shed a lot of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also did a lot of controversial things. And
he's not the Tantra guy. He's not the Tantra guy, is he? Have you seen that show Unwell?
No, it's not that. No,
okay,
there's a show called Wild Wild Country.
Okay.
You know, and anyway. So if they sensationalist it, and blah blah blah, and if you watch it, you go, oh my god. But like anything, we are all things. It's actually on Netflix. It's called Wild Wild Country. It's,
okay.
But basically, he's a philosopher called Osho. Because obviously, in the same way, for instance, Jesus, right, is quoted with all these beautiful quotes like "Do unto others as yourself." This what I do, you will do, and more. I and my Father are one. All of these things are actually run through all the deepest philosophies of all the religions. That's what's interesting, is that as you start to dig deeper and deeper and deeper, you get to the center, and you find that all philosophies, all sciences, all in their center, they agree. You strip away all the nuances, all the colloquialisms, etc. Anyway, Osho talked about the reason why I mentioned Jesus is because in his time he was so controversial, he literally got crucified,
killed. Yes.
So in that same way, a modern world, Osho got kind of modern day crucified, and so people, if they see the thing, they'll see him as a villain. But and so Jesus was a villain in his time, right?
Right.
So it's really interesting that when you're talking about shedding the light, is that when we look at people in our lives, and you're like talking about being bright and stepping up. When we look at history, we go, wow, everyone who stepped up and was bright didn't do too well, right? So there's another one of the
there's a
programming.
price to pay. Yeah, there's a price to pay for being honest.
And as I said, what I discovered through some very strong hardships that happened to me about a year ago is that actually the deconstruction of myself, that disintegration, that attack on my egoic being, my physical being, has freed me from that fear. And so that's now why I'm online, I'm posting, I've done my new, and I'm really, this is my life now. This is, the fear has been taken away. So the person who attacked me gave me the most amazing gift.
Right.
And they were playing a role in the advancement of my evolution. Because whilst the fear of the attack is way worse than the attack.
Yeah.
Right. And it will limit your expression, because you're like, oh, what if somebody is going to feel some way, and yet when we look at all those that that really have made a mark on the world, every single one of them upsets the status quo, and then the status quo has a reaction, but ultimately it's your own internal status quo. But back to innocence. Okay, so Osho talked about, he said he basically, and it's actually a Zen thing, so you could say Zen talks about this, Zen philosophy, which is basically when you come in, you're ignorantly innocent. So a child is innocent, and that's why they have no programming to reduce their light, and they shine, and that's why you go, wow, this baby is so amazing. And then when they're upset, they're like, wow, this baby is so intense. Nothing's filtered, right? So they don't have a programming. They don't even have programming that you're separate. So you actually come in as a child,
like a blank slate,
and you don't. Well, no, not a blank slate. No, you don't try, and every moment you enter with the fullness of yourself. So you're not blank when you enter, but you don't try and impose anything into the moment apart from the expression of who you are, which is what I'm saying. The idea is you eventually get back there. And so the end of the journey, Osho would talk about, but they don't know the other. So then we go into this journey of basically confusion, and essentially we forget who we are, what we are, and we create all these masks and personalities, and we end up living somewhere up here, as opposed to, and our core essence is sort of in all these layers. And then we start doing work, etc., and life challenges us, and we strip away, deconstruct, and they end up, and an old person, if they've gone through this journey, like a Zen master, is innocent, but he's not ignorantly innocent. He's now innocent because he knows that everything else that he sought wasn't the answer. So now he has arrived back at his essence and knows it to be so, because he has exhausted the whole wheel of karma and dharma. So he's got, following his dharma, he's exhausted. Oh, I'm not that. I'm not this. The Advaita Vedanta in India the Vedas talk about this idea, neti, not this, not that.
Yes.
And so when you are shining so bright, as we were talking about, and then you get shut down, you're too much, you start shutting, and then you adopt that. And now you're like, oh, what am I then? So then you try and discover who you are, and you go through and oh, am I that? Am I that? And am I this happy person with this person? Is this person the person that completes me? And you do all these six extra, and eventually you're like, no, I'm not that. I'm not that. And then you eventually start getting to the point of like, this isn't worth it. Nothing is worth the sabotage of my authentic self. And that's why, to a certain extent, even those who aren't spiritual, like old people, get belligerent, right? They're like, no, I'm done with all that. I'm just me. I'm going to be me.
Right.
Stop that, right? And they get this sort of attitude. And so you could do this from a spiritual perspective, but you eventually realize you were the one that was betraying yourself for some payoff. But what happens is, through life, you eventually realize that the payoff costs you more than the payoff. Initially, you think the payoff's going to be more. So this is you. This is who you pretend to be. This is the payoff you get for that. But this is the cost. And eventually the cost ends up being that. So you then stop pretending, let go of the payoff, and you'll be authentic. And what it cost you, you get back, which is your true self.
I love that. But that's why more spiritually enlightened people have a lot of laughter in their lives. They aren't those cranky people going, oh, those young people. They're the most enlightened people in the world. Like, did you read the Book of Joy with the Dalai Lama and Archie? I mean, they're so funny together, telling jokes back and forth, even if they were kind of making fun of each other. It was all in good love and fun. I think the healing power of laughter is just, wow. I love it.
Totally. Laughter yoga and that whole guy in India. I actually went and did all that training. That's a whole other
yes, we have
journey.
to collaborate. We have to collaborate some more, because it's so much fun to talk to you.
Your trigger around innocence is this bill of goods that we were all sold, which is such a problem, which is that we're all so desperate to be adults, which is to have a standpoint of I know, right? And in fact, one of the biggest things that triggers people is when you say to someone and they go, I know that, I know that. And the whole story behind that is, what do you mean? Are you saying I'm stupid? Are you saying I wouldn't know that? You think I wouldn't know that? Of course I know that. Where do you think you're better than me? And this whole underlying web of reaction and dynamic, which comes from as a child being parented by a dominant parent situation, which is where the parent says, I'm going to teach you. Right. You don't know.
Right.
You have no idea. You're ignorant. So when you hear innocent, you hear ignorant.
Yeah.
You don't actually hear innocent.
Yeah,
now,
I hear naive. I hear naive and ignorant. Yeah. And blinders on. I hear blinders on.
And so all of us go around fighting with pride about this creation this identity we've got. And the last thing we want to do is have anybody find out that we might not know something. Right? Oh my God, it's like which essentially blocks us from learning. And then what we do is we create worlds and situations, and we only go to, I'm good at that. I'm good at that. I'm going to do that. Why are you doing that? Well, I'm good at it. Someone said I was good at it. So do you feel great doing it? Well, no, but it's safe, right? So we go for this safety, protecting this creation that is basically a prison for our inspiration.
Yeah.
And so innocence is this living in this fluidity. How does it feel? You literally arrive innocently to every moment. You're like,
bringing in the baggage.
Yeah. You don't bring the past.
Yeah.
You don't bring in, let me tell you, and you don't bring in the future. Well, I have an agenda.
Right.
you literally allow expression like a child does. And if somebody cuts the expression, you go, oh. And the interesting thing about it is that if you're offended by somebody blocking you, you were attached to it being delivered. And this goes back to what I was talking about, the rain. The rain isn't attached to whether it hits a rock, the earth, or a seed. It rains.
Right.
We are the source. We are literally a spring. The idea, our only job is to take out the boulders that we've blocked our spring from and express that. That's it. And we know what it is, like I said to you, because it's the thing you judge yourself the worst thing. The thing you block the most is the thing that you were sent here to express, to discover who and what you are through that expression.
I love
You're
the
here
way
to
that
share who you are.
Yeah, I love the way
And
you
if you can
explain
imagine,
that.
and if you can imagine everybody doing that, so everybody's like, what can I share with you? Right?
And
So,
the other part of that is that, like, last time we talked, remember I said, you know, God doesn't care what's happening or like to us and such. And it's like, it's a trigger word for people. It's the rain's going to happen. We don't know if the seeds are going to grow, all that kind of great stuff. There's no one with a plan that's making it's us that's making it happen.
so I think, again, we have semantics that trigger people, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think in that context, you know, there's different levels of understanding. On the level of understanding of a personality, which is how Christian religion has proposed God. You know, the first use of the word gods was actually, you know, from the ancient Syrian and the Greek and the Roman, all that was actually those that had power over, right? And so, and they were personalities. So when Christianity came on, it kind of coerced that. I actually have an ideology of God, which is more that it's an infinite potentiality. It's that infinite source without definition. And so, and from that, everything can be born. Because if you are something, you're limiting the everything. So to be everything, you can't be anything. That being said, and that is going into those esoteric realms. What I don't think it's esoteric. I actually think it's it's like scientific philosophy, right? You know, it's like the theory of everything, the energy that is all, the energy that is the makeup of every molecule.
Right.
Is basically energy in motion, relating with another piece of energy in motion. But back to the God concept of personality. On that level, this is what I call the big U. And it cares immensely. It cares totally. And its only function is to love. But what it cares is for you to experience that freedom of essence. And everything that you attach to in your own identity is what limits that freedom of your expression. And so a caring God will deliver with you something that will deconstruct you, that will take you apart, so that you can have the freedom of that essence in each moment to be expressed, so that you're not limited by yourself. So the small you adopts the limitation, and the big you offers the deconstruction, the things that deconstruct you, which could be perceived from the small you as not caring about the small you. And in that sense, the big U doesn't care about the creation of the small u. If the small u has made let's say, a decision that it wants to experience a grander version, the big U knows that to do that, deconstructing it might serve that. So like Lego bricks, you get to, we kind of started making something at 1, and then we added to it at 2 and 3 and 4. And eventually we have this grotesque thing that we kind of try and paint really nicely on the outside. But if you go all the way into the middle, here's the 1-year-old's version, the 2-year-old, and each layer is made with, let's say, the innocence of that layer, but it doesn't allow for the whole to evolve. The whole has to be limited by all those layers. So the idea of deconstruction is that life comes and hits you with these deaths or these illnesses or these money things, and it all falls apart. And then, just like when I was talking about moving house, you take the pieces, you start putting them back together, and you go, oh, hang on, I have so much more wisdom now. I'm not going to build it like that. But also you go, oh my God, there's this thing. I remember as a kid, I loved to move and dance, and I was super exuberant. Oh, that's going back in. That got so hidden, I forgot that was part of me. So the opportunity that is given by the idea of you being fluid is what the Big U is trying to serve. So it will care about that, not about the identity. And so this is where we have the big problem with God and religions, and trying to explain why God does destructive, deconstructive things, and we see that as evil, and then we create the whole concept of the devil around the idea to why do things deconstruct? But what I'm telling you, that the understanding of this philosophy is that it takes that, because that never made sense to me. Ultimately, you can see from this theory that I'm, exercising in my life, it actually makes sense. This now makes sense. And so I think in that sense, caring is optimal. It does care, but it doesn't care about the construction that is no longer serving you. And you only care about that because of the fear of stepping out beyond that, and actually, and in letting go. So your limitations become your ingratiations, things that you think add to you, and they limit you. Everything you think that you've added to yourself has limited you.
Right. It's not acquisition, it's release. Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what are you working on next? I will let you go. I will let you go. But I just, this, and just for anybody out there watching, this interview is going to be on the Strong Body, Strong Soul podcast, the audio, obviously. I'm so excited that you guys have joined us here. What I'm going to start doing here on the Strong Body, Strong Soul show is inviting Paul back again. Let's talk more another time, because I want to hear about your fluidity ideas that are coming down the pike, coming down and getting downloaded. We'll talk another time, but I love having interviews like this and allowing people to eavesdrop on our conversation. And hopefully they got something out of our conversation that will help them in their lives, and they'll want to go buy your book, because Paul's book is great. He explains all of these things. Each chapter is so well thought out, the way it builds. And I thought it was really, really great. I was trying to take notes. I actually listened to the audio version, but it's in print and audio now too. So that's great.
Yeah, audio literally just got released this week on Audible. So if you're an Audible or audiobooks, I mean, if someone's tight on a tight budget, audiobooks.com, you basically,
it's on both then?
Yeah, it's on, but it's actually on about 50 platforms. But if you go to a new platform, this is a monopoly hack, right?
Yeah.
If you go to, for those that
my candelabra.
For those that haven't quite got their abundance lined up, I mean, honestly, the truth is that if you invest in yourself, you will invest in yourself. If you don't invest in yourself, you won't invest in yourself. I know that sounds a little inane. So, for the sake of less than a cup of coffee, you literally can get 25 years of all the stuff I went through and what I learned from it,
Right.
So, but if that's a stretch too far, or you just want to taste it, then you can go to audiobooks.com if you haven't been there, if you're an Audible member, and you can join and you get your first book for free, and then you can unjoin. So, you can listen to it. There's many ways. And on Instagram and Facebook, but Instagram, you can follow me on Instagram, just hashtag Paul Gotel. I've been doing video blogs every morning. Literally, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a messiah. I'm somebody who is sharing their journey, but I'm constantly pushing the boundary. So I'm somebody that's out there. I'm kind of like a Bear Grylls of like, evolution and spirituality. I'm out there doing some hardcore stuff, having some hardcore experiences, and I share them. So my blog every morning is like a picture that you can use, and then I write about it. But also now I'm doing video, since the wonderful thing about the pandemic in that sense is that now we share. So I'll share, and so you literally, I'm just sharing my experience. It's my online journal, so to speak. But you can get updates constantly as I'm evolving, as I'm going through my fluidity.
Where is your blog located? On your website?
Yeah, blogs on www.paulgotel.com. So it's just my
Okay.
name.com. And if you go there, you can sign up, and you can also and literally within the next few weeks, I mean, my next thing now I've done my audiobook is that I will actually be building a MailChimp mailing list, so that I will actually also, because a lot of people, I personally like to get I'm the member of about 5 or 6 email lists where I just wake up in the morning and bong, it's there in my email. So I'm going to also be doing that too.
How often
So
are you planning to send out a newsletter from your MailChimp? Have you thought about like once a week or every day, or you're going to
oh
use it
no,
like a journal?
yeah. It's so
Uh-huh.
what I do on Instagram, I'll basically, what's on my blog, I'll send that a day. And my idea is that 2 minutes is enough. So it's
Right.
like a 2-minute video. Like if you read the page, it would take you 2 minutes. And if you just got a second, as you know, I do those like little haikus with the images.
Right. Right.
That'll
On
give it to you. So
Instagram, it's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
love those. I also think that in this modern technology world, we're starting to learn more and more about ourselves. There are so many different ways to consume great information and content, whether it's video, audio, or written format. So it's important. I'm glad you're getting out there in all the different ways
yeah,
of
yeah. I mean,
communicating, because you
everything
don't
that I've
know who.
everything that I've posted over over this you know enforced evolution revolution we're having, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I've probably, I don't know, got 65 like 2-minute like wisdom downloads.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to be editing them, making sure that they just look good or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put them on the YouTube channel, and then the YouTube channel will start, and then I'll just automate posting a new one every day, and so you can, so in other words, so there's some place you can go and you can sort of
Right.
search up, oh, I want to know about presence, or I want to know about gratitude, or so that you can, I'm going to hashtag them so that you can actually, oh, what's this little download of that.
Right.
And as I said, that I've been working on 2 TED talks that are like a 15-minute
Fantastic.
delivery, one
Right.
on the concept of more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're just enough, you have nothing to share.
Uh-huh.
That's why I don't agree with that philosophy of I'm enough. I'm
Right.
like, you're
More than
more than
enough.
enough,
You have
so
more
you
to
have
spill
to
out.
share.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you literally aren't happy unless you're sharing what you came
Yes.
to share. That's
Yes.
what I believe. It's like happiness
Yes.
is you discovering your purpose, which is to share what it is you came down with. And you know
Right.
what that is, because you have
Right.
more than enough of it. And you know what
Yes.
that is, because you spend your days holding it back.
Yeah. 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 But I could live without that word innocence. I'm just kidding.
You see,
But
the thing is, you see, it really talks to what I was talking about, which is that you've gone through life, you've achieved things, you've gone through challenges, you've learned, you've grown, etc. There is part of your egoic identity has attached to the ingratiation, the pride, the prideful ingratiation of
mm-hmm,
those achievements. And so
mm-hmm,
the idea of innocence seems to be attacking those achievements. But
mm,
the point is, just like I quoted already, but if you're humble enough to know that something you don't know, that will change everything you do know.
right, right,
Literally
right.
everything you think you know, everything you think you should achieve, you could learn something this second that would change it all.
Mm-hmm,
That is the essence of humility, and it's the opportunity of innocence.
right, right.
It's saying you're open, because even if you knew everything that ever was possible in the whole of existence, if you took everything that anybody on the planet Earth had ever known, like I think Google are talking about doing that, right? In a huge supercomputer, right? And now it's available on your phone, and anybody can say, I know everything. I can just look it up, and now I know it.
Right.
So the point is that in the sphere, and this is just a philosophical ideology, but in the sphere of everything you ever could know, like that you could ever know, that ever was possible in its infinity of eternity, it would always be a minuscule amount. So innocence is the understanding of that. and realizing that that's the gift, that you will never exhaust this beautiful journey of discovery. Why would you not want to learn? Why, in other words, why would I not want to discover failure? Oh, this thing I constructed is now failing me. Great. Let's take it apart and build something new that's now in alignment with who I am, because that served me then and it was awesome. But I'm not that person. That's 5 years ago. That's 1 year ago. That's 1 week ago.
Well, and just what you said before we got on this call was you wrote the book, The Big You, about 10 years ago. And then
in
now,
its first incarnation, yeah.
Right? And now that you've done the audio, you've actually added to it with additional insights that you've learned in more current times. So I think that's beautiful. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so very much for spending some time here. I love it. Next time you're going to have to walk around and give us a little tour of the pond.
Oh, absolutely. Do you know what? I had, if you probably noticed actually.
I can see the wind. I can see the wind in the background blowing the trees. Is it raining?
Yeah, No.
Okay.
It's not. It's not. Like, here you go, everybody. Here's the pond. Where are we? There's the pond, and there's
very nice, very nice.
There's the trees, and there's the palm trees, and there's the blue sky.
Beautiful. Oh yeah, no rain today.
No rain. No rain today. But yes, I actually did think the next time I was like, I'm not that light, so I actually did buy all this stuff. So I actually have got a light and everything. I haven't just actually. So next time I'll do that.
Well,
I've got the lighting.
I would love to figure out a way that I could be sitting on the beach at Zuma, and you on the beach in Maui. That would be fun to have it in the background. But I don't know if I can get the Wi-Fi powerful enough to do it live. But we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I Zoom call with my family from the beach on Tuesday mornings.
Yeah. We'll see. All right. Thank you so much again, Paul. Have a great day. And I will talk to you soon. Namaste.
Okay. Do you mind if I have a new nickname for you?
What? I love it.
All right, darling. Take care.
Okay,
Much love.
Bye.
Bye.
Truly so filled with gratitude to Paul for joining the show. And thank you, the viewers or listeners, for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Don't forget, you can go ahead and like and leave comments. You can subscribe to this show if you like. And of course, share it with a friend. Check the show notes here to find out how to reach either Paul Gotel or me. I'll talk to you soon. I'm Maria. This is the Strong Body, Strong Soul Show, just in case you forgot. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.